Hello and welcome to Clamp, the Creating, Living, and Making podcast. I'm your host, Morley Kurt, and joining me as always is Grant Alexander.
Hello.
And Adam Mackey.
Hello.
What's going on this week, guys? What is in your clamps, Adam?
Oh, I get to go first. I've just been editing, really. Editing the draw video for my workbench. So I'm currently in the middle of editing the draw video, but then I have every other video being edited at the same time because I want to have every video done before I put out the first one. But the first one's probably actually going to be like the draw pools, just as like a general video, and then like I'll go into doing like the 3 workbench videos in a row. But yeah, so been getting that done, did some voiceover. I don't know why I never thought of it before, but like I actually recorded the voiceover halfway through editing because from what I'm up to, because for some reason I had in my head that I needed to finish the whole video before I went and recorded the voiceover. But I can actually record like what I have done already. And then I got permission off someone to use their music, so pretty happy about that because I really wanted to use it.
That's
awesome.
Super exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that happen with one of the first videos I made. And I made the video based on a quote. It was actually from Kung Fu Panda, but it's sampled in like a lo-fi hip hop song. And so I messaged the artist asking if I could use it, like totally expecting no response because he has like millions of streams on Spotify. And he actually got back to me and it was awesome.
I watched that video and I wondered how you got away with using this music because I was like, it's all Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah.
So that's cool that you... Because that was a long time ago that I watched that and I went, oh, one day he's going to get taken down for that.
Not yet.
No,
well,
yeah. Well.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole altogether. The copyright situation of sampling and lo-fi hip-hop music is actually a very interesting topic if anyone wants to look into it. But I digress. This week, I put out the leatherworking toolbox video, which I talked about last week, and it got great response. People seem to really like it, which I'm really happy about because I definitely like fell in love with the aesthetic with like the brown leather on the black outer case, and then the unstained Baltic birch on the inside. Yeah, so that was very fun to get that out. I was working on a video not for my channel this week, or more specifically yesterday. So the Steam Project, which is the place where I'm working, they wanted to make a video for National Grilled Cheese Day. So I made a grilled cheese using all of the equipment in the makerspace. So like the laser cutter, the scroll saw, the heat press, the drill press, a little robot, another little robot. It was a ton of fun. And hopefully, well, when is National Grilled Cheese Day? Anyways, I'm not going to be the one editing it. I just filmed it and then passed it on to the next person. So, okay, it's Monday, April 12th, which is actually the day this podcast comes out. So if everything goes according to plan, that video should come out on the same date of this podcast. And when it does, I will link it in the show notes.
Nice. Is it going to come out on TikTok and stuff? Because that seems like what you're doing seems like a TikTok video.
I filmed it all in landscape because I think they want to go multi-platform with it, like probably edit it for each. Mm-hmm. So it will be on their YouTube channel, probably be on Instagram, probably TikTok as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
I saw there was a little forklift.
Yeah.
Like thing. Yeah, that looked fun.
Yeah. So fun fact that I learned about those. That is actually an entirely open source robot system called SMARS. It stands for the Screwless Modular Assemblable Robotic System. So you can download I haven't looked super into it, but I know it's what we use at the Steam Project. So you can download the 3D printable STL files. You literally 3D print tank treads that you put onto them. And I think you can get all like the software and stuff as kits. They're really cool. They have all these different attachments. You can put like a bulldozer bucket on them and a forklift like the one I had in the little video. So if you want to make a little robot, check out SMARS robots. They're pretty cool.
They look awesome.
Yeah, they're fun. They're a little finicky, but especially when kids make them.
It looked fun.
Yeah, and I've just been skating every day, which has been tons of fun. I've really been missing like an extreme sport. It's been a little while since I've done one, and the feeling of just like progressing every day and spending an hour getting into like this really great state of just progression and come inside and is exhausted. It's been a great way to like just be active and so it's been good.
I used to skate heaps when I was younger, and then I got too fat for it. But it's secretly one of my goals for like when I finally lose weight to get back into it, because I used to love it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I need to get some new shoes though, because I'm quickly destroying my like 3-year-old running shoes.
I have only ever fallen. I've never skateboarded.
It's never too late.
We went to I guess you could call it a fair where you are, but we have like this thing every year. It's called the Sydney Royal Easter Show, and it's like pretty much a fair. And they had like skateboarders on like ramps and stuff as like shows, and they had this massive ramp, and this 5-year-old was like dropping in on this massive vert. Like it was insane.
Nice.
Like my son turns 5 in less than a month, and I'm like, that's insane to think that he could do that. Like if he had the training, but yeah.
Grant, what have you been up to this week?
Well, it has been Drawer City around here. I have been assembling. Yeah, I've been assembling drawers. If you can believe it, I don't have enough clamps, so I do one at a time. Basically, I've been putting a drawer together like every hour. Not exactly on the hour, but when I have the time, I go in there as long as it's been an hour since the last one I put together. But I'm sure there's a more efficient way to do this. And I do have more clamps that I could use, but like they're big giant pipe clamps that just like make trying to do the job really difficult. And it might be more efficient to have like 5 of them on the go at once, but I don't think I would enjoy it. And I just thought, sometimes it's not worth making the most efficient choice.
So as someone that's like into cars and everything, surely you have 1,000 ratchet straps around, right?
So you can't use the ratchet straps. I don't actually have a lot of them, but you can't use them because when you do box joints, the fingers like expand a little bit past. Yeah. So you'd have to use like clamping calls, and then it becomes like all of a sudden now you're like in a really annoying thing.
Couldn't you use 2 ratchet straps just inside from those fingers?
Yeah.
So like how you would be using the pipe clamps, just have a ratchet strap going right around?
I'm sure you could. I don't know if you'd get the right thing, but that is definitely a way to increase efficiency if I had a lot of extra ratchet straps. But it's more about like, at what point do you worry about getting something done, and at what point do you worry about just, trying to be the most efficient? Something that I thought would be a good conversation to have.
I try to be really careful with trying to be as efficient as possible, because you don't want to worry about efficiency until you have a good product. And like, the worst thing in the world is having to undo a bunch of work that you've already done, or look back on it and realize that you should have changed something. So I think it's really important to know when you should not try to be efficient. So like, for example, like the makerspace, I had to cut up a ton of 1/8 inch Baltic birch plywood because that's our stock for the laser. We use it for the kits. It is very commonly used material in the shop. So it was a massive stack. It was probably about it was over a foot thick, and of 5x5 sheets. And so there's a lot of steps to cut it up. We had to rip it into strips and then cut it on the miter saw, and it was all systematic, right? Like you want to be efficient in that sort of situation. However, I didn't want to choose a system immediately and start working off of that. Like the first couple batches each time, I made sure to kind of like play around a little bit and stay really conscious of like what all the problems are and what I should adjust. And probably didn't really get into a good flow until like 50% of the way through. But that last 50% just flew. And, you know, if I had latched onto a system before then, it probably would have taken like a third longer. So, you know, but that is something where you actually would want to be efficient, which is, you know, different from if you're just making something for fun or you're not literally doing production.
Well, while I was actually gluing up some drawers, I was listening to a podcast. I was listening to Because We Make, and they were talking about the robot army that the Vincent has with his like CNC and his 3D printers and his laser and whatever. And he was talking about how much more efficient it is that the way he works, because he was looking at getting a shaper, so like the handheld CNC, and for what he wants to do, which is like batching out product, a handheld CNC means you have to be there and do your work. It's not very efficient, right? And Ben from Make for Life workshop convinced him to get a real CNC router system, right? And I think about that and I go, I have almost no desire for producing product, but I think a CNC would be really cool for those things that I'm not capable of doing. And so I think maybe a shaper is in the future for me, you know, because I'm not batching out anything. I don't need that efficiency.
Yeah, but a CNC doesn't need to be purely for efficiency. It can be for exactly what you said is the use case of the shaper in getting a larger degree of accuracy than you could on your own. I think they are just different tools.
Yes. So the only thing I'll say is if you don't have the room for a CNC.
True. That's a good point.
But if you're debating about what tools to have in your shop, you should consider how often you're going to use it for that type of thing. Like you need to think about these things. You can't just go, I'm going to do it. Like it's just something that I go, you know, like you have to really think, how are you going to use this thing before you figure out whether or not it's going to be the most efficient process?
I think what my plan when I was going to get a CNC was like, we do want to do production stuff as well, but doing the things that like either I'm not interested in doing or, as you said, don't have the capability in a way to do. Like, so I have a plan. Unfortunately, he knows about it now, but I'm going to be making eventually a full-size TARDIS, but it's going to be an arcade machine. So like one of the walls, like the front or whatever, will have like an opening where like the screen and controls and all that will be. So I'm going to be making that for my mate. I'm going to wait till I get a CNC because I really cannot be bothered to go around and cut out all of the windows and everything to perfection when I can just make a CNC do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not overly interested in that part of the making.
Right. And if someone handed you a Shaper Origin, that would work out perfectly for that case. Right?
Yeah.
It would work out for that one project. It wouldn't maybe be the best project for like tool for you. But if someone said, hey, can you want to test this out? It would work for that one project. And it would be perfect, just as efficient as the other one.
I can see like the Shaper being good for things like how David Prosciutto just did like the inlay on his workbench. Something like that. But like if I'm going to buy a CNC, I want it because I don't want to do the work. Or I want to be able to set it up and walk away and do something else. Like having the Shaper is like, to me, less efficient. I don't know. Yeah.
And so that's why I want to talk about this, because I often think about efficiency and effectiveness and what your goal is. Right. So one thing my dad taught me a long time ago, we were driving somewhere and we were going somewhere and I was like, I think there's a better way to get here. Right. It was like driving in my own town, but I was just moved here. And I said, I think there's a better way to get here. I think if I turn here and then there's like, some road up there, I think I can get there and it'll be like, cut a whole bunch of corners off. And he said, if you do that, that's great. And, if we weren't on a timetable and we didn't have a time limit, that would be great. But you'll lose a lot more time getting lost along the way than if you were to just go for the way that you know how to get there, right? If you know the way you're going to take there takes 30 minutes, and you might be able to get there in 20 if you take a different way, well, it might also be 40 if you get lost along the way, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like evaluate your goals.
Yeah, and those things that those unknown unknowns take up a lot of time. But when you talk about like effectiveness, I think a lot of times trying to be efficient can get in the way of effectiveness for me. So like today at work, I had a lot of computer work to do, and I could have just done it straight through all day. But if I had done that, I would have just gradually slowed down throughout the day, and the quality of my work would get a little worse each passing hour. So rather than doing that, every 20 minutes or so, I like stood up, walked around, went outside, went into the makerspace and cleaned some stuff up from the day before. Because people aren't robots. Like, you can't force yourself to just do a repetitive task for 8 hours and just expect that it will be done perfectly. And
especially when it's not
yeah, go on.
Like if you're button pressing for 8 hours where there's no like creativity, there's no like, it's like even that you'll get worse and worse at. But when you have to imagine what you're doing and whether or not it would be feasible to do it for 8 hours.
Yeah. And the opposite of that as well. This is something that Daniel Kahneman talks about in Thinking Fast and Slow, which I talked about last week. Like, if you're doing work that takes critical thinking and you're trying to like parse out important information, that's tiring. And if you just do it straight on, like, you'll just get exhausted. So like, and that was sort of the work I was doing today. It was like, it was a large volume, but I like had to look for certain things. And there wasn't a point where I could just like motor. See, so if I'm like working in Fusion, for example, like designing something, that's the sort of work where I can go for a long time without a break. Because for me, it's a good mixture of like critical decisions and playing and kind of just going automatically. It hits all those bases. But the other sort of work with like reading through a bunch of information and looking for certain things like isn't really that as much. That's something I really need to like do throughout a period of time and take breaks and do some other like mindless tasks or some more like hands-on tasks in the process if I want to be effective.
Right. It's like sanding. It's like the most efficient way to sand is to do it all at once. But for me, the most effective way, so that I don't like, want to just quit woodworking, is to break it up into batches. Right? Do a little bit at the time. Like I wrote up the instructables for my little toy car. And I realized in it that when I looked at the footage, I sanded at steps that you didn't need to sand at, but it took that bit of like sanding and shaping and broke it up into like 4 different spots instead of like having it all at once and then like being frustrated with the fact that you're doing it for so long, right?
I've actually been thinking about that with my workbench because I need to sand down all my pieces. Like, that's my next step, is to sand all of the drawer fronts and the workbench and everything so I can make the drawer pulls, because I need it to be sanded first. It only just occurred to me today that I don't need to sand everything now. I can sand just the drawer fronts and move on.
Yeah. Well, on the thoughts of this, I was on Instagram, and I was, as I often do, reading or listening, watching, whatever you call it, Chris from Cowdog Craftworks, and he had highlighted a bit from a book. I don't know what book it was, but he was reading some woodworking book, as he is wont to do, and he mentioned he'd highlighted a little red circle around, you can get away without having a jointer, but like it would be hard pressed to get away without having a planer, right? Because a planer is just so much more efficient than hand planing. but a jointer is only a little bit more efficient than a power jointer, right? So when you're thinking about what you need to buy, think about like how much more effective or efficient that will make your workflow. Like I think about half the time I actually use my table saw for jointing instead of my jointer because I find my table saw, I trust it more. It's easier to use for jointing with my little like jig I've built, especially if I'm doing any kind of large board. It's just so much easier to use my table saw. So it's just one of those things that I like to think about.
It kind of dovetails into the hidden costs of buying cheap things, right? It might cost less now, but it might cause you more pain and heartache along the way. And if you add it all up over time, you might as well have just bought the new one. Or conversely, you might have to buy so many replacements that it might even be more expensive to buy a cheaper thing than buy the nicer one. But as humans and consumers, we're really bad at seeing that.
We definitely are. I know I fall into that trap all the time of buying like cheap tools at Canadian Tire when they go on sale 75% off. #callback. And I get burned half the time because they're so like cheap and they just break, and they're got like a lifetime warranty is great, other than the fact of the amount of time that you spend being inefficient going to the store and getting that lifetime warranty serviced, right? Well, either like it never breaks halfway through the day while you're working on something. It breaks at 11 o'clock at night when you have a deadline, right? And now you're screwed because you don't have anything. You can't go to the store. It's not open, you know?
Amazon's got to speed up that drone delivery.
Yeah. I want next hour delivery. Thank you.
Yes.
I can't even get next day delivery. I hate how long delivery takes. I don't buy things online a lot because of that. Like, so I'm on Monday going to pick up my Ranger, and I need to put a radiator in it just so I can get it home. I can buy it online for like $100, or I can go to the shop and pay $160 and have it now. I'm just going to go to the shop and buy it now because I hate waiting for deliveries.
Did you find a new Ranger to replace your totaled one?
No, so I'm getting my totaled one back. So according to our road registry place, it hasn't been written off yet. So I'm hoping to fix it and then either sell it or keep it because I could fix it for like $500.
Oh, okay.
Like make it drivable, may not perfect. Like
it won't be perfect. It's like exactly. Like there'll be a dent in the back or something, but like it's worth more like that than I'm going to get from insurance anyway, and I can fix it for less than what my excess is going to be. So
yeah, definitely
crazy. Well, we'll not go into a grant rant or a G rant into insurance.
Actually, well, Adam, that you saying that reminded me because I was thinking about your stories that I was watching this week, and you posted that little tip about drilling into drywall, and how you can just use a screwdriver tip. And I thought that was such a good idea because like the quality of that hole does not matter in the least. All that matters is that it's the right size and that it works. Yep. And that is a great example of like where like quick, efficient things make so much sense. It's those quick and dirty contractor tricks because they know after 20 years of experience where the hole doesn't have to be perfect or where the cut line doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that's where you can lose a lot of efficiency is paying the same attention to detail of sanding the back outside edge of a drawer as the front drawer face. And then you realize, oh, no one's ever going to see this.
But my drawers for my workbench are not going to be sanded at all except for the front. Yeah. Because I don't care. Like, okay, if it was furniture I'm making to sell, all right, I'm going to make it a lot nicer. But for something that's just for my own shop, I really don't care what the inside, like, you don't see it unless you pull the drawer out. Why would I care?
Yeah, and you're going to drop a driver in there and it's going to dent it the first day anyway.
Exactly.
I remember watching it like a really old, like a long, like 4 years ago, watching a Jimmy DiResta video, maybe 3 years ago, and he installed a bullet bourbon diorama, basically, of their, like, it had like, like he built out like a fake distillery. And one of the comments I remember, because back then I used to read comments because I still liked my life, I guess. I don't know. Or I hated my life on it. I don't know how it worked. Um, but I read the comments and they're like, I can't believe he didn't finish the backside of that. It's like, it's hanging on a wall. No one is ever going to see the backside, right? Like, but it's like, well, he didn't put the finish on the back. Like, it wasn't even it was a stain, right? It's like, well, why waste the stain so that it sits on the back? Like, this guy's in business making things. Like, he doesn't have time for that.
No, I had people make that comment when I a couple of videos ago when I made a belt, and they were like, "Why didn't you dye the back?" And I said, "Because you don't see it when you wear it, and it looks bad anyway when you dye the suede side leather, unless like you add a ton of dye, and it's such a waste." And so, I don't really understand where that sentiment comes from. I think I've kind of touched on this a few times in the past few episodes, but like, I've been thinking a little bit recently about just like, like everything you make will eventually just like break and fall apart and get thrown away or recycled or repurposed or something else. Like, it's not going to last forever. And I think people can get way too caught up on the fact that like it needs to be perfect, and it just doesn't make any sense considering the lifetime of the thing. Like, yes, make your thing look nice. Like, and I'm going to make my things look nice, but like, you got to keep a little bit of perspective.
Totally. And on top of that, I'm going to put this out here. If it breaks, I'm guessing you know how to fix it.
Oh yeah. That's my most common response when someone is like, well, what if that breaks? And I'm like, I can make a new one.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. But that's the thing. It's like, do you worry about trying to make it perfect? Or do you try and make it like, especially we're talking with shop furniture, like a workbench or something. Like, how much time do I want to spend trying to make my workbenches perfect when I'm likely just going to spill oil and glue all over them or something stupid like that, or cut into them with my circular saw? It's like, that's why I went with like, I just decided plywood tops, and I think Jimmy uses MDF tops, and then you don't worry about cutting into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's like the workbench I'm making now. I'm purposely making the top to be removable and out of MDF because I know it. Like, that's my current workbench looks like absolute crap because I've spilt stuff on it. I don't have the energy to like keep up with keeping it clean, nor do I want to waste that time because it's not efficient.
Right.
So I make a top that I can just unscrew and put a new one on.
And it's not in your living room.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, it's not meant to be pretty.
Yeah. And as I messaged Mark Dana, and I said your workbench looks beautiful, but like, I wouldn't want to use it. Like, I was in love with my workbench when I first made it. I didn't want to use it. And then like I spilt the first thing on it, I'm like, oh, whatever. Who cares? But yeah.
Well, that's one of the fun things about like being able to make stuff. It's like you can decide that you want to make something way over the top. But it's not like everything, I'm sure not everything Mark makes is equally as over the top as everything else. Like, you make those decisions specifically, or I don't know, unless you're a superhero. I don't know, Mark, are you a superhero? Can you just make everything perfect and put like 1 million hours into each project? You pick your battles. Totally.
I think that's a really good part. It's you choose what is the goal for this thing and what are you trying to get out of it, right? And if it's your hobby and your thing is woodworking and then you enjoy or making things and you enjoy the part of making it, then don't like stop worrying about trying to be the most efficient. But if you're trying to make money, efficiency comes into play. And I think that's where a lot of people that comment negatively about you doing something inefficiently are very concerned about making money off something, right? Like, anytime I've gotten kind of a negative thing, it's like, well, that's not the best way to do that. And I go, well, did it work? Yeah. Well, then Don't worry about it. If you have a better way, go make your own video and show the world how to make that thing the better way, right?
Exactly.
But like efficiency, I don't think always does have to be about like making money. Like sometimes finding efficient ways to do something like is really fun. And
Totally.
like figuring out the systems. There's this fantastic, I think it was a number file video. It was one of Brady Heron's channels. And he did a few video series about this kooky old physics professor in like Berkeley, California, who makes glass blown Klein bottles, which is this mathematical object that only has one surface, even though it's in 3D. It's like the 3D rendition of a Mobius strip. And in his basement, he has this whole like warehouse set up in his crawl space and a robotic forklift that goes and retrieves them in all the different boxes. And it's all this like inventoried system. And like, yeah, I think he did turn it into a business, but it's wonderful and it's whimsical and it's so much fun. And
totally,
like those over the top logistics, or even if not over the top, but just making things work together. There's something really satisfying about that.
I'm with you 100%. Making things efficient is something like that is the thing that I enjoy about like that, or I've been praised about in my job all throughout my career is like, wow, you've really found like the best way, the most efficient way to do this. And it's all because I just keep, like you did today, you just keep changing it until you figure out like the best way that involves the least amount of movement and the least amount of like putting the stuff down. But when I was making these drawers, I wasn't even thinking about that. I went, I'm enjoying this process. Let me just do this. 20 minutes, get this one drawer done, move on, and walk away. Right? Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. I'm not a drawer maker for a living. I don't need to find the best way to do this.
Well, and the other side too is like, if you do get wrapped up in efficiency too much about like things that don't need to be efficient, or just about, just too many things, you can find yourself like in a rut, and especially in things that like don't need to be in a rut, in routines, in the way you just kind of like set up your life. And that's one of the really nice things about experiences, I think, that break up routines, is it allows you to like realize those ruts and the things you've made a little too efficient, and find better ways. And I bet I'm betting with COVID, a lot of people will have fallen into quite the rut in their own living arrangements. And when the world opens up a little bit, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize how much of like a pattern I've fallen into. I've heard many people talk about this, how they've really like in a very unexpected way fallen into incredibly mechanical routines, like without even trying, like wake up at exactly the same time every day, eat the same thing for breakfast. And just because like each day is so similar, your body just sort of like defaults that way because, we sort of evolved to live efficiently. So when the situation presents itself, your body's like, oh, okay, great. This is the best way to do it. Let's go.
And that's something I was reading about the other day. A news article was talking about like why people choose to some people choose to take the stairs and another person chooses the escalator. And it's an evolutionary thing, right? I like back when I used to go to work in the real world. I would often meet a colleague of mine because we took the same bus and the same train together, and there was this set of stairs, and beside it was an escalator, and I would always take the escalator, and I would run down the escalator. Like I don't know. I don't care. Like it was about that was the more efficient way, right? And no matter how you looked at it, and she always took the stairs because she wanted that little bit of exercise. And that was definitely the healthy choice, and she was much healthier than I. That's a guarantee. But it was always that thing that I look back and I go, I always choose the most efficient way of doing something to the detriment of myself. Right? Like that's a good one to look at. I'm like, this is my only bit of exercise I get a day is going to the bus and to my office. It was the only, now I get none, was that, and I would always choose, no, there's a set of stairs and an escalator. Unless there's a lot of people on the escalator, I'm choosing it, right?
You can still walk to the bus stop and back. Just don't catch the bus.
Yeah, I don't have time for that. Ain't nobody got time for
that. Just tell work you're running late because you're on your way.
Yeah.
But you're at home.
It is funny when you do become so established in a routine, it can almost seem unattainable that there are other ways of doing things. I've noticed this all the times that I've started a new job and I've gotten very comfortable in my morning routine or whatever. I'm like, I'm going to have to wake up like 2 hours before I leave because it just takes me that long to get ready in the morning. But it doesn't. You're like a snail. You grow to fill the space that is given to you.
Well,
and
this is the difference between my wife and I. I wake up half an hour before I have to go to work because I get up, I go to the toilet, have a shower, get ready and go. She gets up like 5 minutes before she has to go to work. She doesn't have a shower or anything and just gets up, gets dressed, goes.
Yeah. You can really change up the speed of that morning routine.
Yeah. Well, a project takes as long as you let it take. I don't know exactly whose like law that is.
It's work grows to fill the time allotted to it. I think that's the law.
Yeah,
for sure.
But it's that. It's if I don't have a deadline, I have a real hard time finishing things. And part of it is I often will think in my head what's the best way to do something, to the point where I go, I've spent hours thinking about this. If I had done it, I'd be done by now. Right? Like, I've spent so much time thinking about what's the best way. If I had just gone out there and did it, I'd be done.
You can say that about a lot of things. Like I say to myself, it's going to take like 2 years to lose the weight I need to lose. And then I get discouraged from that. But then 2 years down the track, I'm like, well, if I started 2 years ago, or I even think it like at that present time, if I started 2 years ago, I'd be done now. Not done, but you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Put things off because you think it's going to take too long. And I do that. I do that all the time.
So to push back a little bit, I do think that taking the time to think something out and pre-planning is worth it a lot of the time, especially in projects. Like there are definitely things that aren't worth thinking about a lot, but I think we also live in a society where busyness is put on such a pedestal that people feel uncomfortable if they're not being busy doing a task. And just sitting and thinking and looking at all the things and how to do it doesn't really look very busy. So I think it's easy to feel insecure when you're doing that and you're like, no, I should just get started. But it's happened so many times from experience, like taking that extra time, and especially when you're with other people like who want to get started and you're like, no, just relax, just wait. Like if we start this now before these other people come with the things that we need, like we're gonna cause more damage than if we just hold off. But it's so funny. Like we have this self-sabotaging instinct to just like get started. And a lot of times like it's really not the way to go.
I'm with you 100%, but at the same time, you can spend too much. Like that's the problem with everything. One side way too far, problematic. The other side way too far, problematic. It's all about finding the sweet spot.
No, and I totally agree that like, there's so many times when you don't have to overthink something, but I just wanted to add that little caveat of don't be insecure about just hanging back. And if other people are really trying to push forward and being that person that's just like, just hold on, everyone.
Right. Think it through, but don't get paralysis by analysis, which is what I feel a lot of people get, is that they just keep looking at it and go, I don't even know what to do.
Yeah, I know we've talked about it so many times, but I just love Jimmy DiResta's analogy or metaphor or example of you got to move that giant piece of cast iron down into your tiny New York basement shop. How are we going to get it down there? Well, the first step is you got to bring it down the first step, and then you'll figure out the next one. And assuming the thing isn't too big to fit through the door, that works a lot of the time. But if it's too big to fit through the door, then it is worth it to take a little bit of time to at least measure it first.
Exactly.
I've never heard that. I like that.
Yeah.
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 And that's one of the things I love about, spending time with people who are very experienced is like they know when to step back and take a moment and measure the thing before you start. That is where like I think so much learning in life comes from, is seeing where people speed up and slow down.
Right. Well, and I think like a good point of what like Adam said earlier, it's like I don't know, it reminds me of like Andy Pugh once told me, when's a good time to plant a tree, right? And it's like 40 years ago, right? Is the best time to have planted a tree, right? Where's the second best? When's the second best time? Today, right? Like, that's it. Like so do it now. If you want to enjoy a tree, when I moved into my house, I wanted to put a new tree in the backyard. I moved in 8 years ago. I still haven't done it. Right? By the time I get around to doing it, it'll be like 40 years and I'll go, right? Because I want to have a tree that grows so that the other trees, as they start to die off, it'll be a medium or large size tree, right? But I have to do it.
Mm-hmm. If you are going to put trees in the yard, though, please don't put palm trees. They are the worst to dig out once you move in.
Right. I'll remember that.
I think if Grant were to plant a palm tree, it would not last 6 months.
I meant that for everyone, not just for Grant.
Okay,
done. I will remember. No palm trees. No,
honestly though, like their root system is that bad. It's if you want to get like we moved into a house when I was younger, like 10 years ago, younger, and there was about 13 palm trees out the front of this house, and like they were just randomly placed, like so ugly. It literally took us like a week to remove one tree because the root system is just that bad.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm always surprised at that bamboo grows in cold climates. For some reason in my head, I always think it's like a warm climate thing, but then I'll be walking around Toronto and be like, oh, that person has bamboo trees in their yard, which makes sense because Japan has snow in it. So
yeah.
That's its native place. Some of the largest snowfalls like on record are in Japan.
I can understand why you would think that. Like it looks like so bright and green, like it would be a summer sort of plant. But I mean, I think I've seen a lot more videos of pandas in the snow eating bamboo than not in the snow. So, but yeah, speaking of bamboo, I don't know how we're getting on this tangent, but have you seen the Mythbusters episode where they test about bamboo growing through people?
Yeah, and it works, doesn't it?
Yeah, like so crazy.
Yeah,
it's a very strong plant.
That's something
I've got bamboo flooring.
Yeah, it's cool. I've been wanting to try stuff with bamboo for a while. Not like the composite stuff you buy, but actually like split my own bamboo and try to make different things from it. It's such a in Asia. It is such a versatile material. They use it for everything.
Mm-hmm. I would love to try and make like a blowgun out of bamboo. I think that'd be really cool. Like trying to work out how to actually clean out the inside properly and stuff.
Yeah. Well, since we are getting pretty deep down a tangent, why don't I thank our patrons? We super appreciate everyone who supports us on Patreon. You are all the best. If you support us there, you will get a custom embossed leather keychain. We've started doing a monthly pre-show hangout, and every episode we do a pre-show and an after show, which are always a good bit of fun. I think the past 2 weeks, maybe it was just the last one, but I feel like we went really long and kind of forgot we were doing an after show. But it was a good time. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to patreon.com/clamp. And if you want to support the show but don't want to do Patreon, we always appreciate it if you share it or leave us a review. It means a lot and helps the show out for sure. All right. Clampmendations.
Before you go on, I wanted to quickly say, if you tag us in a story on Instagram, I will always reshare it. So if you want a free shout out from us on Instagram, tag us in a story, because I will always reshare it and you get a free shout out. Yes, I'm trying to buy your shares.
If you want to share about Clamp, don't forget to tag the rest of the people, because I would love to share some of them, but I can't because Instagram only allows you to share things that you're tagged in.
Yes, precisely. And if a neat little trick, if you want to, actually no, because I want my name to be on there, so don't worry.
All right, Clampmendations.
Clampmendations.
Well, my Clampmendation this week is going to be Vic from Down Under Woodworks. All his projects really are pretty cool. But I got onto him because I was looking up how to make a DIY disc sander, because I have a couple of spare motors and I've been wanting to make one for a while. And then just started binge watching all these projects, and yeah, they're really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vic's a good guy.
Yeah.
Nice. I want to give a shout out to my friend Emma. She is someone I met when working at Lake O'Hara Lodge. And I didn't know it a ton then, although I did see some of her work, but she's also an amazing painter. And she recently started selling some of her work, and as well as posting it on Instagram. She does really beautiful landscapes and some sort of like impressionist Rocky Mountain scenes. We actually just bought one because we're trying to fill up our apartment with art from our friends. So she's Emma Fenton Art on Instagram, and she's just a lovely human being in general. So go support her because she's good.
Beautiful. She's got a nice humpback whale I saw on her Instagram. That's cool. Well, this week I want to give a shout out to Rob T from the Takami Wood Shop. He did a little video about his endless straps. They're like ratchet straps that he uses for tying things to his car. Actually, he doesn't have a car anymore because he sold his BMW wagon. That's how we used to be really good friends. I actually won that wagon, but because of lockdown, I couldn't go and collect it, unfortunately. So thanks a lot for that, Rob. Fucking lockdown. So yeah, anyways, he did a great little thing showing you how to strap things down securely and easily. It's the same system I use when I strap down my canoe, but I don't use ratchet straps because I don't want to break my canoe in half. But yeah, it's a lot of the clamp systems, or not clamp systems, a lot of the ratchet strap systems that I've seen have little hooks on them, and he was showing you to use them without the hooks. It's just a better system, and I agree.
I very rarely use the hooks on my ratchet straps.
That actually sounds very useful. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
Which, if you listen to the... Never mind. All right. We don't have any reviews this week, but it looks like Adam has a tip.
Well, Grant does too. So my tip is going on what we talked about with efficiency is to have a clean shop. My shop is very rarely clean, but when it is, I am a lot more efficient.
Nice.
Well, my tip this week, I'm going to talk about how to adjust your camera settings with in Windows, because in the Windows native camera thing, it doesn't have any kind of way of adjusting the like hue, saturation, sharpness, all that garbage, brightness, contrast. You can like make yourself black and white. But anyways, if you want to do that very easily, use Skype. And I know Skype, it's the worst system in the world. It's like impossible to leave from Windows, blah, blah, blah. I get that. It sucks. But it adjusts. If anyone's watching on YouTube right now, you can see I'm in black and white. And that's all because I can adjust things on Skype. It's got this really great system. I downloaded it because for some reason in Windows, it defaults to having this low light compensation. And when you've got a whole bunch of lights on you and lights behind you, they just like overpower. The computer webcam on my laptop just didn't know what to do, and it would just blow me out. And I would just look super, super white. And everyone out there probably thinks I'm super white, but I'm not, because that's just the camera doing that, I swear. I do have a nice tan. I know I have a tan because I can roll up my sleeves and see the tan lines. So, anyways, you could use this to play around with different to play around and make yourself different colors, like I'm doing right now. If you're watching the YouTube video,
Nice. Oh boy, I don't know if I have a tip, but I will think quickly. And nope, I don't have one. Sorry.
all right.
I should really think about this before we actually do the episode, but since we've only started doing it the last few ones, I always forget until right this moment.
Well, you had like 2 tips ahead of you to think about it.
Well, I was listening to your guys's, and actually, Grant, while you were saying that, I like started opening Skype just to see if I could start playing with it as you were saying it. But then I remembered that like Zencaster really doesn't like it if you have too many apps open, and it was slow. And I was like, oh no, and I closed it out of fright.
Half the time I forget to get a Clampmendation, better get a tip.
Yeah. All right. TF Turning, thank you for the theme music. I always sing it during the after show, and it's a yam. If you want to see Grant's wonderful cover art, you can see it on Instagram at Clampcast. You can find us at clampcast.com, the website. Did I miss a "the" in either of those? No, it's just Clampcast, right?
I don't think so.
Just Google us. Clamp, Morley, Adam, Grant. We're also on YouTube, Twitter, The Clampcast. And I think that's about it. So thanks for listening or watching, and you can never have too many clamps. So
Bye.
Well, bye.
So don't forget to share this with a friend.
I was just following Adam's lead. Just cutting myself.
Goodbye. He was reading the part on the thing.
I know.
And you were just like, nah, I'm going to screw it all up for him.
You just cut me off.
That was the point.
No, that was good. I enjoyed that hosting and the antics.